Hello, guys, and welcome to the Pinnacle X podcast number 3. And I've got just the most amazing guest on today, a Highlands North superstar from Johannesburg, a sportsman deluxe, an academic, can you believe it? Full of nonsense, and a head boy of Highlands North, can you believe that? Incredible, still a legend down those corridors, an ex-Rhodian, and I've met plenty naughty Rhodians in my past, and he's up there in the list. I studied German and journalism at varsity, and I would say quite a decorative career, but that's not what we're going to go into today. This person loves people. Understand that. He gets on with people, bit controversial sometimes, but aren't we all? And I'm going to dive in to find out who the real person is here today. And Graeme Joffe, I'd like to welcome you, my mate. And I'm really privileged to have you on the Pinnacle X podcast. Thank you, my friend.
Doug, what an absolute pleasure, and good luck with your new venture, Pinnacle X. But there are a couple of things that were true about me, but being an academic, that's not very true. I was a battler. I think because I was head boy at Highlands, I think that's why they pushed me through matric. I don't think I passed science and maths in matric, but they can't fail the head boy. So I think they pushed me through. Rhodes was a different story, but no, great to be on the podcast. And again, just let's have some fun.
Absolutely. So let's start off. How did you get the name Joffe's my boy? Where did that come from?
That was all from Jeremy Mansfield. So, I worked on 94.7, the breakfast radio show, The Rude Awakening. Jeremy was an amazing guy, and it's still so tragic that the guy is no longer with us. Just really, really sad, because he made us all on that Rude Awakening. He allowed us all to join into the show. He was never greedy about airtime. He gave us all plenty of airtime. But yeah, it was him. The whole Joffe's my boy. That was all about that. That started with Jeremy, and then obviously we had the Joffe's my boy stupid sports joke.
Which I loved. I loved it.
Terrible. I was the only one who used to think those were the best jokes in the world. But I just used to love walking into that studio at that time when we did the joke, and I could just see Jeremy's face. And I used to say, Jeremy, today I've got the best one ever. And I could just see him going, uh-oh, this is not good.
Yeah, so we'll have to have a toast to the late Jeremy sometime too. Yeah,
he was a legend.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back into at Rhodes University, what people don't actually realize that you're actually quite a talented sportsman. You've played soccer, squash, cricket. I'm sure you probably held quite a good fines meeting in the cricket. I used to play for Pirates, and Charger Jack, I don't know if you remember him. There were plenty legendary fine sessions. I'm sure you could have held a good fine session. And what else are you playing? Now you're playing tennis and pickleball. You're the pro out at Hilton Head in the States. Tell us about that. Could you have gone professional for any sport?
No, I'll come back to the fines meeting, because there's a great story about that with John T. Rhodes when we played inter-varsity cricket. But I was a jack of all trades, master of none. I loved sport. From my very first days at primary school, Fairways Primary School, Jimmy Cook was our coach, cricket and soccer. So why wouldn't you have thrived in that environment when you had a guy like Jimmy Cook as your coach and your mentor? At primary school, I played pretty much everything. At high school, I continued to play pretty much everything. I just loved it. I loved being part of any sport. The only sport I didn't enjoy was the headmaster at Highlands Boys, another great guy, Russell Kitto. He made me do cross country. And I was possibly the worst runner. In fact, the 3,000 meters, I eventually had to run the 3,000 meters at Inter High. And at Parktown Boys in 1986, I got lapped by the winner and the second place and the third place guy. But I think I got the biggest cheer when I crossed the line in about 24 minutes. I think they were already starting the next events, and I was still running in the 3,000 meters. Crazy.
That's brilliant.
No, I could never have turned professional in anything. initially cricket was my big sport. Then when I got to Rhodes, I loved my soccer as well. I played cricket, soccer, and then squash. I played competitive squash for about 20 years, but never good enough to take the next step up. But again, loved it all. And had a lot of fun with all those sports. And, just that's what makes your lifelong friends today. Even though I've been gone from South Africa now for 9 years, the guys that I played sport with at Rhodes are still still my closest friends.
Yeah.
And then coming back to that Fines meeting.
I'm dying to hear about this Fines meeting.
Cricket InterVarsity, and John T was playing for Maritzburg. I was playing for Rhodes, obviously, and I think it was 1989. I don't remember where we played that InterVarsity, but I think Maritzburg, I think they beat us quite comfortably, I think. But John T in that game was stumped. I think it was one of our leg spinners. I can't remember who it was, and John T was stumped. So after the game, we had a joint Fines meeting, and I didn't know John T didn't drink in those days, supposedly. Maybe he didn't. I don't know. But and John T basically, when he got stumped, he kind of looked at the umpire when he gave him out. And then I just said at the Fines meeting, John T Rhodes, fine for him. The guy was run out, and now he was moaning about his dismissal. Here's a fine. And the guys just looked at me and said, don't give it to John T. He doesn't drink. Anyway, it was because John T Rhodes was a big name already then. Yeah. There was little Graeme Joffe giving John T Rhodes a fine. I think maybe that was my starting point in making a noise.
Yeah, ironically, he was my head boy at school. Just I'll get him on the podcast too. Good man, good man.
Sure he is.
So you got into the investigative reporting, and that is, I understand your sports passion, and is that what drove you into the sports arena? Investigating that.
Yeah, exactly. When I was a kid growing up at primary school, my grandfather, we used to sit on the couch and watch SABC Top Sport all day Saturday. It was actually all afternoon because it didn't start in the morning. And I remember in those days already thinking, wow, a guy like Trevor Quirk, he was the first kind of commentator that I really got to say, I want to be like Trevor Quirk. I don't want to drink as much as Trevor Quirk, but I want to be like Trevor Quirk. And he was an amazing guy, quirky, just a good example of someone that I wanted to be like. And so as a kid growing up, I wanted to play and I wanted to be involved in the sports arena. And then the opportunity obviously came to study journalism at Rhodes University. So I knew my direction pretty much from the get-go, early days, and just to follow that path of being a sports journalist.
Yeah, so it's like changed your whole life, on the investigative side going forward. And could you just touch on, because that's not the focus of this podcast, and I really don't want to. Could you just touch on that night you got the phone call?
Yeah, just coming back to, I got involved in investigative sports journalism purely by default. And I'm sure most of your listeners will remember the big controversy in the Super 12 between the Lions and the Kings. And there were people pushing agendas for the Kings to be in there. And so it was all purely by default. And I thought, wow, I've got to start digging a little deeper. And then it just snowballed from there. Because there was no culture of investigative sports journalism in South Africa, everybody, administrators, coaches, players, anyone who had some information started sharing it with me. And I felt, as a journalist, you got your ethics and integrity, and I couldn't sit on the information. And I hate to see injustices. And in South Africa, a lot of the athletes and sports people, they face an injustice almost every day, where they've got to pay their own way for facilities, for travel. And it's because a lot of these sports administrators in South Africa have prioritized self-enrichment ahead of the athlete. And that is a big bugbear of mine. And it continues, obviously. But so, yes, investigative journalism turned my life upside down. I was in Grahamstown at the time, living back in Grahamstown, because Johannesburg had become too crazy for me. I was being followed. My phone had been tapped. My computers had been hacked. Opened a criminal case with the police in Sandton. My docket disappeared after one day, typical. And I then met some people involved in South African equestrian, and they said to me, they've got a private investigator on their books. And if I can help them with an expose on equestrian, which I already had done, and plus I had so much information on it, but they said their private investigator would help me. And the private investigator basically found that I had 4 diversions on my cell phone. And then I was in Grahamstown on the Friday night, and one of the guys in Equestrian who basically was paying the private investigator, he called me and said, Graeme, he's identified a threat to your safety. They're coming to get you this evening. He said, at that point, it's like 10 o'clock on a Friday night. I'm not going to wait around to see who's coming to get me. And, Doug, to be honest with you, all the research that I've done since, it probably seems like I was double crossed by the private investigator, that someone had paid him off just to scare me further, get me out of the country, which obviously that's what happened. And then to obviously stop my digital publication, which was naming and shaming sports officials every day. And I became an arch enemy of a lot of sports administrators, and then obviously government as well, when I started exposing the National Lottery as a huge corrupt entity and a criminal syndicate.
So getting to the deeper side of this now, this is like your values. This is your, you're not giving up. And I mean, it's your integrity, like you mentioned it. So how's that now, so many years down the line, how has that stood you? I mean, you're never going to weaken yourself as a person, because that's what you stood for. And I guess your family upbringing has taught you that. And did you ever question your values as such? I mean, did you ever just think that you had gone too far?
My values came from my father, who was all about fair play.
Yeah.
He
so
wanted
fair
everyone
play is
to
a
have
big word with you, eh? Fair play.
Very, very big, very big. And my life got turned upside down when when you become a whistleblower and investigative journalist, you don't make a lot of friends. People run away from you.
Yeah.
So again, but I have absolutely no regrets. I would do it all over again.
Okay.
And let me tell you, investigative sports journalism was one of the best addictions I've ever had. It was unbelievable. Yes, you are totally consumed by negativity. It turns your whole life upside down, but it was incredible. I loved the journalism side of it. And why should these corrupt people get away with it? Why? And again, as I said to you, no regrets. Yes, I went through a very dark and lonely times for years. And it's only probably in the last 2 to 3 years that I feel like Joffe's my boy is finally back.
That's amazing. So that's what, I mean, it's weird how you brought that up. So I wanted to know that negative energy that you almost had thrown at you all the time. How did you kind of handle that, to turn at the other side?
Not very well. I mean, it's what's the only healer is time. It took years and years. I mean, I was in dark places. I was, looking for answers. I was trying to, I was getting off my bed and trying to do stuff, trying to get back in, trying to get your life back. But again, it's about time. But then every time you see vindication, I mean, Danny Jordan being arrested this week was further vindication for me. I exposed him, I don't know how many times, with all these different corrupt links, and you feel good about that, but I feel the biggest part about it hasn't really brought about any change. These officials have got away with it. A lot of them not going to, a lot of them don't even end up going to jail. There's zero accountability. And because there's no watchdog in South African sport, it's everybody for themselves. And the corrupt get greedier and greedier.
So it takes a lot of courage to do what you do. This has affected your life in the sense now that you're exiled, basically. You're in the States. People have made your life a misery in the sense that it's affected you personally. I mean, you've had to make some sacrifices. You've probably went over there with, like you said, with a suitcase and with not much in your bank account. I'm not too sure, to try and start your life again with no support structures around you. I think you got family over there, a sister and a brother, I think. Is that right?
Correct. I mean, that's why, Doug, when I had to leave, I mean, I really had to get out in a hurry, left with a suitcase and a laptop, and not a lot of money. I had a lot invested in my projects in South Africa, but and I went to family, obviously, so I had a roof over my head, and I had some protection, and it's life changing. But everybody has something. Everyone, it's how you negotiate these hurdles in life that defines you. You can't give up. You can't give up. And I really, I feel so good now, and I still poke the bear a little bit on Twitter because I just feel like I'm not done yet. And I'm soldiering on. I've got a totally new career, but I still have that little bit of bitterness because sports journalism is my life, and hopefully I can still get back to it at some point. But it was taken away from me, by these corrupt people and by people who wanted to see me disappear, kind of.
Yeah. Well, that's super interesting. I mean, it still goes back to your courage and the way you've handled yourself going forward. I mean, your family obviously was a great support to you when you arrived there, and you've set up your life. You're taking those steps forward, and you're feeling like yourself again. But what I'm wanting to know is, what kind of legacy are you wanting to leave once? Where are you going? Because you've had this journey, and guys, you can all go and research and check out Graeme's journey. I mean, it's very interesting. You can buy his book to go and check it out. It's called Sport, Greed, and Betrayal. Go and buy it and read everything that Graeme's put out there. And I just want to know, I mean, you really have made an impact in South African sport and exposing corruption and all that. Yes, we know that. But who are you going forward, and what do you want to leave? Because you're still a latte. You're a latte.
Exactly. 50, just turned 56. I feel like a 25-year-old, damn it. But Doug, no, and on the book issue, unfortunately, it was banned from publication in South Africa. That's another whole story. But if anyone wants a copy of my book, just let them email me, graemejoffe@gmail.com, because I'm sending free PDFs to whoever wanted it. This has been going on for years, and I've been doing it more recently again because I've highlighted the fact that Danny Jordan is in my book, I don't know how, 25 times. So a lot of people have been, oh, you got a book? And so, yeah, graemejoffe@gmail.com. Send me an email, and I'll be glad to send you over a free PDF of my book. It wasn't about trying to make money from the book. I was trying to bring about change. I was trying to make, number one, I wanted there to be mass action. I wanted more sports journalists to try and maybe follow my lead and start investigating instead of being a fan. And that's where there's a lot of problems in South Africa, that a lot of these sports journalists in South Africa know where their bread is buttered. A lot of these sporting codes administrators look after them. They take them for lunches. They take them on trips. It's a tough one. And once you cross that line, you're done. And that was number one. I wanted to bring about change. I wanted people to be aware that we needed a culture of sports journalism, investigative sports journalism in South Africa. I wanted people to know about the dangers of being a whistleblower. If I had a choice, I would love to have worked with, say, 10 other people, because then you're much stronger. I was a lone crusader. I had a big target on my back. So it didn't really matter. And the most important thing, I wanted to bring about change in the South African sporting landscape. I wanted change for the South African athletes. The amount of South African sportsmen and sportswomen that have just kind of given up because the system is so broke. And the townships, the rural areas, doesn't matter. Kids of all race, all ethnicity have been done. Most of them have been done in an injustice by the South African sporting system. And unfortunately, that doesn't seem like it's ever going to change. And there's so much talent for what South Africa has in finance, facilities, and talent. We should be getting 30 to 40 medals at the Olympic Games.
Absolutely.
But because the athletes are not given a right opportunity and not given their training is curtailed by the system, we get 5-6 medals at the Olympic Games, and they come back, and the government celebrated like we've been unbelievably good. And it's masking over all the problems in South African sport, and it's from the top to the bottom that there is just no watchdog, and there is so much corruption, and the administrators are lining their own back pockets, and the poor athletes, they cannot speak up against the system. They are silenced by draconian codes of conduct.
So you want to be remembered as that person who really took people to task for the good of South African sport.
Yeah, and I again don't have to be remembered for anything. I feel good about what I've done. As a journalist, I could not sit on the information. Why should I? Yeah. And I just feel like if I was just hoping it would bring about change, a few things changed, but really the corruption in South African sport is a deeply rooted cancer. And just like corruption is in other parts of South Africa, and it's hard to bring about change. But I gave it a bash. Would I do things differently? Don't think so. If something, again, it's who knows what the future holds. But again, I just wanted, being a passionate sports person myself and having the opportunity to play every sport that I wanted to play, why shouldn't that be for every kid growing up wherever you are in South Africa?
Yeah, absolutely. So with all these things, this journey that you've had, you're not married at 56.
Not through lack of effort. Don't. But Doug, as I used to joke with the guys, and I know some of the girls won't like this, but I go, why? I can't be happy forever. I'll have to get married at some point.
Well, I'm sure there's a few ladies with their eyes on you there at the tennis and pickleball. Pickleball, that's incredible. We spoke about this a few months ago, but and my daughter does exactly what you do in New York, and it's a hell of a job you guys have got. You guys work hours, and you're on your feet, and it's continuous. How are you finding that?
I can feel it in my body sometimes, but how I got into teaching was via teaching tennis. That's how it started, and it was great. And now pickleball, the fastest growing sport in the US. And teaching pickleball is just so much easier and more fun. Yeah. And the reason why you see the improvement in players so much quicker. If a beginner walks on my court for tennis, it could be 2 years before we're having fun. Pickleball, the learning curve is 30 minutes. It's big man's ping pong. You can teach someone how to play pickleball in 30 minutes and they go, no way. And what it's done in society here in the US, it's actually changed millions of people's lives, because a lot of people that have never played sport before have now got a sport that they feel like they can play. It really is. Pickleball is, and I hope it grows in South Africa, because it is it's a life-changing experience, and it's brought about so much change amongst friendships. When you play tennis or golf, very often you'll play with the same 3 or 4 people week in and week out. Pickleball, you go to a pickleball round robin, you'll end up meeting 10 to 12 to 15 new people. And it's amazing what it's done for country clubs, for other clubs, and for people in general. It's been a life changer.
Oh, that's awesome, man. And so is your body feeling it?
Yeah, to be honest, I feel pretty good for 56.
Yeah.
The pickleball is not as hard. Tennis, I get off a tennis court after an hour lesson, and I feel it a lot more than after an hour pickleball lesson. Pickleball seems to just be a lot easier.
But would you have ever thought that you were going to be a tennis pro, pickleball pro it's a beautiful place where you are. Make no mistake.
No, it is. Hilton Head Island is a beautiful place, and it's just, no, when suddenly you get your real career gets taken away from you, you've got to now decide, well, you got to do something else. Yeah. And when I came to Hilton Head the first time to do a tennis instructor's course, I go, wow, pick me. This is where I want to be. And the tennis now, I'm almost doing no tennis anymore, purely 100% teaching of pickleball. Wow. And having a lot of fun with it. It really is a lot of fun. And if you came out to a place like Palmetto Dunes in Hilton Head, and you see a place that's got 32 pickleball courts, and you see 120 people just having as much fun as possible, you walk past the tennis courts, you can hear a pin drop. You walk past the pickleball courts, and it's like you're at the circus. It's a lot of fun.
I got to say, I know personally quite a few people that are really trying their best to grow pickleball here in South Africa. We play it once a week minimum, and we absolutely love it. So awesome. So Graeme, I'm just so privileged that you joined us on this podcast. So maybe we'll do another one another time. And if there's stuff you want to share, like we haven't told half the stuff. Like we're on CNN as on the sports desk there for what, 9 years or 7 years or?
Yeah. My first job in television, that's how crazy it was CNN in Atlanta from 1992 to 99. Graduated from Rhodes in 91, came to my sister's in Chicago for a visit, sent out maybe 50 resumes, got maybe 2 replies, one of them being CNN. I was just in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
CNN International, had just started with the Gulf War, and they needed someone who knew about cricket, soccer, whatever, all the sports. And that was my strength. There's very few sports that I don't have a knowledge of. Some obviously a lot stronger than others. But I love it all. I just love sport. And as we say, sport is just the best unifier. How many times we've seen it in South Africa when the Springboks or Bafana Bafana or the Proteas do well, it just brings people so much closer together.
I hope you're going to watch the Boks play this weekend.
It's going to be interesting. Boks against, I've got a couple of good English friends who believe that England are going to bounce back and beat the Boks. I don't know so much about that.
It'll be a tough game. And then the mouth-watering one also afterwards, France against the All Blacks. Let's see what happens there. But listen, Graeme, I definitely will be looking you up when I'm over there, because I actually plan to go out to your neck of the woods there, because that's my daughter's favorite place. That's where she wants to live. But I really appreciate your time, and just a casual chat like this, finding out who the real you is. And it's been an absolute privilege, like I say. So thank you, my mate. And until next time, stay strong, and let's tune in for I've got a fantastic guest coming on next week too. So her name is Honey Mamabolo. I don't know if you've ever heard of her. Also, very interesting lady. She was the first CEO of the SA Mint. So wow. So awesome. Just good people on the podcast, on the Pinnacle X podcast, and I appreciate your time, my mate. So thank you so much. Okay.
Dad's absolute pleasure, and I hope the podcast continues to grow. Best regards to all in South Africa, or maybe not all, but take care. And the one thing, send biltong. When you come, you better bring some biltong, and make sure you avoid the sniffer dogs at the airport.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, thanks so much, my mate, and we will chat. We'll chat soon. Okay.
Sounds good, Doug. Take care,
Thanks
man.
Again. Cheers. Bye.
Cheers.
Your life is a story like the way.